Hi, and welcome to Culture Lit, a podcast and community that explores Black women and romantic love through the lens of romance novels. I'm your host, Octavia Marie. Each episode of Culture Lit trains a spotlight on a new Black romance novel and then deep dives into the many themes facing Black women and love after 40. Be ready to laugh, sigh, and talk about Black women falling in love, yes, sex too, and the Black authors writing their stories. Welcome back to Culture Lit, the podcast where Black love stories take center stage. I'm your host, Octavia Marie, and today we're diving deep into the bold, the beautiful, and the royally dramatic with award-winning romance author LaQuette. Her new book, Royal Bride Demand, kicks off the sizzling Crowning the Devereaux series and delivers everything we live for: enemies to lovers, second chances, marriage of convenience, and oh yeah, secret royalty. We're talking about love, legacy, sisterhood, and power, all through the lens of a Brooklyn billionaire boss and a salty but sexy prince. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's get into it.
Thank you for joining me. It's such an honor, and I'm so excited to talk to you and hear about your new books. And I wanted to just start out just talking about like how you got to start. I think your first book was My Beginning. Was that your first book?
Yes, that actually was my first published book. Wow, that's like 2013. That's a long time
Yeah, a
ago.
long
Yeah.
time ago. So
Wow,
I spent a bit.
you really are like from OG back in the day.
I am OG back in the day, years ago. My career transitioned into PR, and
Mhm.
I've always been a huge romance reader. And many people don't know this, but back in the Arabesque book days and back, I used to do proofreading and copywriting for
Oh,
Arabesque. So I'm far back.
yes.
Oh, but then transitioned into PR and but still stayed. So I'm a fan of all the OG writers. You self-published that title, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
that was
Wh-
my first foray into
That's what I
publishing.
thought. That's what I thought. How has it been transitioning from indie publishing into the traditional publishing? And then your latest book is with Harlequin Presents. So that's like a whole lot going on there. So can you
Yeah.
just give me an idea of what it's been like for you? I know a lot of authors start out indie, or especially now, self-publishing has
Mhm.
changed so much. But just give me an idea of what it's been like for you.
So, I started out with self-publishing because I had no knowledge whatsoever of publishing. I was an avid romance reader, but I had no clue about like how books were made, right? And I
Yeah.
also, because I was a fan, had a lot of like social media connections with established authors, and I was hearing like so many horror stories about publishers stealing people's work and things of that nature. And I was like, maybe this is just something I need to try to do on my own. But just a warning for folks: be better than LaQuette. Don't be like LaQuette. When I tell you I had no knowledge of what I was doing, I just literally put a book up on Amazon, and probably about five people read it, and I was probably related to three of them, so, or at least knew them personally. I had no clue like what it really took to self-publish, and the truth of the matter is self-publishing, indie publishing, is extremely difficult to do well, right? To do well at it. It is extremely difficult. You literally become the publisher, the marketer, the PR person, everybody all wrapped up into one. And I mean, it was a lot. My kids were really small at the time. So in 2013, my oldest would have been 3, my youngest would have been 1, like almost 1. It was a lot of transition going on in my life. And so there was like, it took so much just to put that book out the way that I did. But the thing that book did was, it again really put me in author spaces so that I could connect with more established authors who really had a better understanding of the industry, whether I wanted to be indie or trad or hybrid. I could reach out and get information from them. And so I was friendly with this author named Piper Kay. She was a gay romance author. God bless her soul. She passed away not too long ago, a few years ago. And she was writing for a really small press called Hot Ink Press. And she's like, "Hey, my publisher is looking for diverse stories. You should submit your stuff." And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I don't want to go through this whole like back and forth process with people." She's like, "No." And she's cool people, and just send it in. So she sent it in, and within 3 weeks, they got back to me. It was like, "Yeah, we wanna publish
Wow.
this." And so that was Heart of the Matter, and it became the Kings of Queens series, the 5 book series.
Mhm.
And that's probably one of my most popular series. Like, people loved those characters. I was sick of them by the time the series ended, but readers had real investment in the
Yeah.
characters. So how that sort of parlayed into, like, the small press was, it's sort of a little bit like a hybrid of indie with not quite trad, but right, close enough to trad, where someone else is taking care of all of the publishing aspect of it for you.
Right.
And it was, an opportunity to learn, get my hands involved in things, and sort of understand the business a little bit better than I did when I started. And then I joined Romance Writers of America, and I got so much information from them on writing and submissions and things of that nature. And I'd become very vocal on the social media space about the lack of diverse romance and the lack of opportunities for diverse authors, particularly Black authors. And I guess people saw that and thought it was cool, I guess. I don't know. Or but what it
Cool though.
I mean, I thought it was because I was talking not because I, wanted people to notice me, but because I believe firmly in calling a problem what it is, like stating
Right.
it and not pretending that it's something that it's not. And so I was very vocal about that. And I wound up giving a speech at RWA conference the summer of 2019. And it sort of put me on a platform in the
Mhm.
industry for people to see me that I hadn't before had any connection with. So after that speech, and thank goodness it went very well, because I pretty much thought I was canceling my career at that point, going on that stage, to having the hubris to tell publishing you're leaving money on the table and you're problematic for not acquiring our stories. I figured there was
Right.
no one who wanted to work with me after that. But my agent was there, and she told me, she says, "Hey, so this editor from Harlequin wants to meet with you." And hand to God, my response was, "For what?" And she's like, and I wasn't being like facetious. I wasn't like, I
What could they
wasn't,
possibly?
yeah, I wasn't like, "Oh, what they want with me." Like, I really it could not fathom why an editor
Women.
from
Yeah.
Harlequin would want to talk to me. And then she was like, "Because he wants to talk to you about like acquiring you, publishing." And then at that point I was like, "Again, for what?" But I meant it a little bit differently, because I told her, I said, "Latoya," my agent is Latoya Smith. I was like,
Mhm.
"Latoya, we both know Harlequin ain't publishing anything like what I'm writing, and ain't no curvy Black chicks from Brooklyn in Harlequin
That
books."
part. Yeah.
And so, yeah, nah, I think I'm a pass. It's like, "Lost your ever loving mind. You better go meet with that man." So it was gonna be like an exercise in frustration. And because I hadn't really traditionally published, I'd done a couple of small presses, but I hadn't like published with like Big Five publishing at all. And I just, I had a lot of assumptions about what Big Five publishing was like. And that as a Black woman writing about Black women from Brooklyn and bringing Blackness and Black culture into my books, I really did not see that being represented in the stories I was reading from Harlequin, right? Because Reese Ryan was there, and she has that
Mhm.
like Southern thing going on.
Mhm.
And there were a couple of other Black authors who also had, different regional things going on. But I hadn't really seen like, rough, brash heroines from Brooklyn in these stories at all. And I thought that was intentional, right? At that point, that was my assumption that it was intentional. So she told me to go talk to the man. And because I listened, because, she's been really helpful in my career in
Right.
getting me into spaces that on my own, I probably would never even think to attempt to get into. And so the editor's name was Charles Grimsman. And we met briefly at RWA, but it was really busy and he couldn't really sit down and talk to me the way he wanted to. So he was like, "Can I call you so we can, really have an in-depth conversation?" So I said, "Absolutely." So he called and I told him, I was like, "Listen, I am, so flattered that Harlequin, has any interest in me whatsoever." I
Because
said,
we all
"But
started
because
reading
we all
with
started
Harlequin.
reading with Harlequin. Like
Yeah.
literally, my first romance novel that I ever read was A Harlequin Presents, Carol Mortimer's The Devil's Price. That was the
Yeah.
very first Harlequin novel that I read. And so when I spoke to him, I said, "Listen, I'm very flattered and I really appreciate the interest." I said, "But I have to be very candid with you. My writing voice is very Black and it's very Brooklyn, and that is intentional. And I don't have any intention of changing that to fit into this line, which at the time it was the Harlequin Desire line."
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, "Well, you're absolutely right. We have not published anything that has, curvy Black women from Brooklyn in it." He's like, "But I have actually read some of your work, and I actually think you have a pretty great voice for category romance." And so that kind of like stood out to me because sometimes editors will approach you. They have no idea what you write like. They've never actually picked up one of your books. They just know your name and think, "Yeah, let's acquire that person because they may have, this kind of following that we're interested in tapping into, or maybe the type of work that they're writing. We want to acquire more work like that. So let's connect with this author." But that doesn't mean they've actually like read your work. And I've had that happen where it became sort of a clash with myself and the editor because they were expecting something else. And I'm like, "This is always how I've written. And so you obviously just aren't familiar with my work." But he had actually read Under His Protection, and which was a,
Okay.
a male romance. And he was like, "I absolutely loved it." He was like, "And I'd like to see you come do something like that." He was trying to recruit me for romantic suspense at Harlequin. And he's like, "Well, since I see you've written a lot of romantic suspense, I can connect you with a romantic suspense editor." I was like, "Okay, that's cool. But you contacted me. You've read my work. If I'm going to do this, I want to work with you. So what are you looking for?" And he was like, "Oh, you want to write contemporary?" I was like, "I write it all. So what do you want? What's your ideal story that you would like to see, in LaQuette style?" And he's like, "Honestly, I would love to see like an affluent Black family in Brooklyn where the business has some connection to the love stories, that the romance stories that's going on." And so I said to him, "So you want me to write Dynasty but with Black folks set in Brooklyn?" And he said, "Actually, yeah, that is exactly what I would like you to." So, I was so like jazzed by this
Right.
opportunity, and by not just by the opportunity, but what he was proposing. Like the type, because this was right up my alley. Very dramatic, very soap opery. These were the things that I love putting in my books, and so I created Devereaux Inc. and the Devereaux family. And of course, the name was a throwback to Dominique Devereaux.
I wondered that.
Um,
I was like,
uh,
is this?
yeah, I actually dedicated the book to the actress Miss Diane Carroll, because like her being on Dynasty was iconic and it was, groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah.
So I created the Devereaux family, who owned Devereaux Inc. And there were all of these like sorts of isms and schisms and separations in the family. And it was all like surrounding this company, Devereaux Inc. And each story follows one of the cousins in like it's a group of cousins, 4 or 5 cousins. And each story follows, one of them getting their love stories. And I'd done all 3 books. My contract was over. And the editor came back and said, "Hey, can you do 3 more books in this series? We really love this series. Readers are liking it. Can you do 3 more books?" And I was like, well, the problem is I hadn't like left really any more space for any more cousins because it was only ever planned to be like a 3 book series. And I had mentioned another cousin, but there really was no room to really put him on the page. And I said, "Hey, so the thing is, this is modeled after 1981 dynasty, right?" I was like, they had a gay man, they had a gay character named Stephen Carrington, who I felt like his really tragic, like, bury your gay story was really, I mean, I understand at that time that was the only story that they could tell on primetime television with respect to having LGBTQ plus characters. They couldn't just be happy because that's not what society wanted to see at that time. And so I was like, I want to write a story, the Carringtons had Stephen, I want the Devereaux to have Stefan, and I want him to be able to have like a story that's not based in his societal struggles as a gay Black man. I want him to have a family who is open, and because Blake Carrington was so terrible to poor Stephen, he was terrible father. And I wanted this man to be loved and adored by his family, and his sexuality had nothing to do with his conflict of how, like, what was wrong, the thing he had to overcome in the story. So he's like, "I don't know, we've never had a male at Harlequin." I can see, but I don't know. And so, yeah, that was pretty much what it was. And I had also like created this set of twin sisters who, but I said the only way to really introduce them was to kill Ace off, to kill off the patriarch, because that way I could bring in, other family members that hadn't necessarily been seen before in the other 3 stories. And so they eventually came back with a 3 book deal, and they told me I had the green light to write Stefan. And so I created the story for Stefan, and I really loved that story. But shortly thereafter, Harlequin Desire canceled the line. So I still had 2 books left on my contract. And they were like, "Well, you could go to another line." But the thing about Harlequin category is their lines are very specific. They have a very specific reader promise for each line.
Yeah.
And readers know what to expect, and they're buying that line because that's what they
Men are
want to
not
see.
venturing outside
Exactly.
what they expect.
And I said, I don't know that any of the other lines will fit me because my work is kind of high heat, especially for a Harlequin category. And I don't really know any other line that would allow me to do that. And so they were like, "Well, why not try Harlequin Presents?" So it's like, "You sure?" Because I don't
'Cause your
know.
sex scenes are very, very spicy.
They
But
are.
even in reading your newest book, I felt like even that was kind of dialed down a little bit. No?
It wasn't dialed down. What was dialed down was some of the language, because at
Okay.
the time there was this internal misunderstanding about what words could and couldn't be used in the line, because again,
Gotcha.
lines have very specific reader promises. And so, because I was just coming in and sort of figuring out things in the landscape of things, I knew that certain words I wasn't going to be able to use that I would normally use in my book. So that might be what you felt was a little bit downplayed. But by the time I got to the second book, I actually learned that I was incorrect in my assumptions and that I could do whatever I wanted. So the second book is a whole lot spicier. And the second book actually almost it starts off with a sex scene. It really became this really, like, I've had a really great working relationship, thank God, knock wood, with Harlequin. And I've really enjoyed working with him in either line, both Desire and Presents. And it has been different from indie publishing in that indie publishing allows you to have a lot of control, right? You get to control everything, but it's also with that control comes a lot of responsibility. And I just have a lot going on in my personal life that doing indie publishing well just would not work for me. So, like, I have kids. I'm, happily married for almost 20 years. I'm in the middle of a PhD program. So, LaQuette's got a lot of stuff, and I still got book contracts to fulfill. So, so
Life
LaQuette's
is life.
got life is life, and LaQuette's got a lot going on. So sometimes even just writing the story is like all I can do.
That's all you have. Yeah.
Because I don't have the energy, the time to put into self-publishing to do it well. And I think, there's this misconception that trad publishing is better. It's not. It's different. They each come with their own challenges, right? Like with trad, you don't have as much control, not in how you tell your story, but in, let's say, like who it's marketed to, where the books are sent. You don't really have like any control over that. That's a company thing. But because of the fact that I just personally in my life right now, it's not a viable option for me. That's the only reason that I'm no longer indie publishing.
Yeah. And they're different strokes in what
Mhm.
you can, like you said, handle.
Mhm.
Especially when for Black women, we're so used to taking on all the things and that's one of the things I kind of touch on a lot with this podcast is Black women seeking out joy and being very intentional with their time and and what they can and can't take on and it being okay to take a rest or to hand stuff off to other people or do things a different way because we get so entrenched in we have to be all the things and do other things and like you said you're PhD and mom and wife and
Listen,
award-winning author.
I have learned in life that the strong Black woman trope is a lie. It's a death sentence. And actually, it's so ironic that you would mention, Black women having joy. Like that's what my PhD is about. My PhD is about Black women representing themselves and showing us, writing ourselves how we see ourselves, writing ourselves how we wish the world knew us, but how we already know ourselves. And one of the things that I tell people constantly is that I don't write struggle stories.
Yes, I
And,
was just going to say everything is not a
yeah,
struggle. Everything is not
exactly.
struggle love. It's
And
not
people get offended by that. What do you mean? And, are you trying to
get it.
say like where Black
Absolutely.
people have come from is a problem? I was like, nope, see, that's not the conversation at all. The reason I don't write struggle stories is not that I don't find the struggle narrative important, right? Like we need that to establish the history, like to explain what has happened, what is still happening in terms of the Black experience in America. However, I do not believe that that is the sum total of our existence, of our
Exactly.
identity. And so it is very important to me to write compelling stories that do not center what I call the perils of societal Blackness.
Yes.
I don't, my women are wonderful, fabulous, and established well before they meet their partners in my books. And that is intentional because that was me. Like I was, I moved out of my parents' house at like 21, had a job, had an apartment, had a car. Like I've never had a
Mhm.
roommate outside of my husband. So that was me from a very early age, like in the world as grown folks do, making it work however I could make it work with the limited resources I had in the circumstances that I was
Mhm.
in at that moment. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't having a good time. I wasn't enjoying myself. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't loving me. I wasn't loving my Blackness. And so for me, it is very important. Like I refuse to fall prey to the idea that the only compelling story about Black people is their struggle in America. And so I just don't write those stories. And so when I get reviews like, "Oh, these characters don't seem realistic," that is often, to me, in my opinion, it's a dog whistle to, these are not Black folks like I know Black folks. Like, this is not what I see on TV. This is not what the media tells me Black people are. There's no victimization. There's no predatory behavior. There's no criminal activity.
Hmm.
There's no poverty. There's no abuse in the home. There's no baby daddy issues. There's no single mother issues. There's no abandoned parent issues. Like, those are the stories that we are permitted to tell in terms of mainstream media. I mean, even if you look back to, like, what's the Black movie that has won an Oscar for Best Picture? 12 Years a Slave, only one.
12 Years a Slave. Hmm. And what roles have the Black actors and actresses won Academy Awards for?
Absolutely. If you look at Halle Berry's
Halle
win,
Berry,
she was a struggling mother who was, just shy of being like a prostitute in the way that she was portrayed in
with a
that.
husband on death row and the
Yeah.
white savior sheriff who
Exactly.
is the jailer for the
E-
husband.
Exactly. As well as Denzel's Training Day, he won for being a thug. He was a cop, he was a thug with a badge. He was a
Hmm.
criminal.
Exactly.
Just because he had a badge didn't make him right. As if you watch the movie, he wholeheartedly is the stereotypical violent
Yes.
criminal Black man that's a threat to society. And now he's gotten a badge, so he truly is a real threat. And of course, the white cop is the conscience of the movie, is the one that sees him doing wrong and is trying to
Hmm.
rectify it, trying to bring him down. And so when you look at stuff like that, like Black Panther has won an Oscar, but it was for costume design. And I'm not knocking that win because that designer deserved it. Like, she was
Absolutely.
amazing and her Afrofuturistic designs were,
But it was palpable
but it
for
was
them to be able to award her for that when the entire
exactly.
movie, actors, actresses, so much of that movie
That
deserved.
movie was
Yeah,
shut out of the Oscars. And again, not to minimize the win for the costume design, but that's the only thing that they would allow us because that movie was amazing and it should have won more accolades that night than just that
absolutely.
one. There should have been more on top of that. But there are only certain avenues Black folks are allowed to be successful in. So, like fashion, design, entertainment, right? These are the things that we're allowed to be successful in. But other avenues or having generational wealth or something like that is not something that is the typical experience or what is believed to be the typical experience of a Black person
But
in
so much
America.
of that exists, and it's absolutely insane that those kind of stories can't make it to the screen, to all of these other accolades because and part of that also, when you look at what just happened in the election,
Hmm.
it's because they can't fathom what's happening now is a direct result of Barack Obama becoming president because it's so
Absolutely.
unfathomable that these people, though
Hmm.
we can achieve those things, that is not the narrative.
Exactly. And some people, like, they really cannot step outside that narrative. And so I've had this conversation even in my PhD classes. My focus is Black feminism, and I've boldly said with my professors in front of me, this program is not teaching me Black feminism. It's teaching me language to already address the things that I have experienced, right? But I live Black feminism. This is my existence. And so I don't need this degree to be able to have the conversations that I would like to continue to have in publishing regarding the lack of support that Black authors are getting in the industry. But what I need the credential for is not because I need to learn these things. I already know them. What I need the credentials for is because as a Black woman, I don't have the luxury of being believed. I can't know stuff. I,
Exactly. Yeah.
I cannot walk into corporate America and have them believe I know stuff, right? Their minds cannot be wrapped around that. However, if I get a degree that they recognize, now that's not to say that they will believe me even then, but at least I can command a little bit more attention and bring more awareness in that way. So, again, it's this idea that Blackness is monolithic and that it can only be one thing. And so I write characters that are really steeped in joy and love. And even if they're struggling in terms of having an emotional conflict, the emotional conflict is never that I'm Black and I'm suffering because of society and my Blackness.
And that's one of the things I told someone when I first started reading romance. Of course, we didn't see ourselves in it. We weren't,
Hmm.
and one of the first authors that I read that had well off, wealthy Black people doing all of these things were Brenda Jackson's books.
Brenda
And
Jackson, Rochelle
Rochelle Allaire,
Allaires, Frances Ray, and
Frances
Sandra
Ray.
Kidd. Those were the people that the
Yeah.
first Black authors I read. Those four women were the first
Yes, me
Black
too, me too.
authors I read.
Absolutely. And Beverly Jenkins. And even then, she's even in the way she did historical romance, stories that touched on the truth and, but done in a way that it wasn't all steeped in pain and overcoming and
I actually teach her. What is now the book is escaping me, the title of it. But there's a book she has where the hero is passing for white, the
yes,
Levesque
yes,
family. And I teach
the
it to
brother.
I teach it to my students and I have them break it down. Like we analyze it. And it's like, one of the things I love most about that book is even though this man is a Black man, he's formerly enslaved, but because he can pass for white, you never see him trying to separate himself from his Blackness. He actually aches. He longs to be able to publicly embrace his Blackness. It kills him deep down in his soul to not be able
Hmm.
to publicly embrace his Blackness, and the way he talks about the old queens, and the magic and the things that they knew and how they took care of each other. um but he's doing that. He's sacrificing like that so that he's in a position to help his community, right? He's in a position, even though they don't know it, because he has wealth now that he's been able to accrue because of the fact that he's a white man, or at least believed to be a white man. He is able to use that wealth to fund Black businesses in their town and somewhere out west, wherever they are, right? He's funding businesses. He's giving business loans to Black entrepreneurs who could never get a business loan at that time, and building this really prosperous town that has a lot of Black dollars being not just created and generated, but circulated in the town. And these are the things, like, this is why there is a wealth gap between Black people and white people, because we have not had that ability to keep dollars inside of the Black community. We could not get business loans to have businesses in our own communities. Asian people were actually given business loans to start businesses in our communities because white folks didn't want Asian people in their communities. And so the problem with that is those Asian dollars are generated. Those dollars are generated in the Black community, but they
Then
go
go
back to the
outside.
Asian community, right? Because they take their money back to their own communities. And so Black communities have not had the opportunity. It's been very few in between. And when we have with places like Tulsa, it's been destroyed, right? And again, crippling us and putting us, Rosewood, all these places that were thriving Black meccas. And they were destroyed out of hatred for seeing us become something other than what the world believed we should be. So for me, writing, strong women and their partners who treat them, who cater and care for them and treasure them and treat them like they are delicate and precious. That's important to me because it's resistance. It's resistance to this idea
Yeah.
that Black women don't need rest and that we don't need to be cared for. It's resistant. It actually resists the idea that we are not superheroes, right? We are human. And
Hmm.
it demands, like, I demand that my readers see my characters as human beings because they feel and they have big feelings. And they're, oftentimes very confused about those big feelings. And they have to work through those big feelings, throughout the book. But never will their big feelings be, I, am struggling because I'm Black.
Yes. Yes. And you mentioned that resistance and what that they're not used to traditionally seeing Black women in the roles. And I keep
Mm.
saying that is what the whole backlash is for Duchess Megan, is
Mm-hmm.
that it has nothing to do with Lake Annette. It has nothing to do with it is because why this Black woman, and they can't see us in those roles doing those things, having that
Yep.
I hate to say so, but that soft life and being adored and loved
Mm-hmm.
on and kissed on the forehead by her husband, especially a
Mm-hmm.
white man.
A
With
white
those
prince, because
a
that
white
is
prince.
that is like that is the goal, right? That's every little white girl's dream, to grow up and marry a prince, right? We have how many Disney movies about that, right? So it's the goal, is what Americans are trained to aspire for. and and then to see this woman who is not like them, and see him love her so ferociously, right? Like, he is very intentional with the way he loves and takes care of her.
Absolutely.
And literally was like,
And they don't think Black women deserve that.
yeah, they don't think that Black women deserve that. But then on top of that, for him to literally be like, I'll burn all this ish down over my wife. Don't play with me.
And have and did.
Right? Don't play with my wife. I will
And
burn
did.
all this ish down. And for that to
That's what they
happen,
can't like.
yeah, that's
You
the
mean to
thing
tell
that,
me he cannot be thinking it has to be her manipulating her.
yeah,
It because
it
why
can't be
her?
him.
It
It
can't be
it
him. Like,
can't be
yeah, I'm
him.
burning all this shit. And that's the whole
Because
thing. It's like
we are
they're
that's
like,
that whole Jezebel, controlling image and stereotype. We're
absolutely.
wily, we tempt white men, and they are unable to control themselves with our feminine wiles and all that other nonsense. That's what that is. They really just cannot believe that he is the status, right? He is
He
what
that's
all of
the like you
those,
said, the goal.
yeah, he is the goal. He is what all those Disney movies are about, right? And to see him decide to choose someone that they could never be, because that's the thing. As long as he chooses someone that looks like them, they can still have
In
the
their mind
fantasy
say,
in their minds that, oh, it could be me. Like, it could have been me. Nah, boo, it could have never been you. Never, ever,
because
ever.
why
But
does it Prince Harry has kind of told on himself a few times throughout the year. It
So
makes sense now.
exactly. And even though it is a form of resistance, that's not the purpose of my books. Like, that's an outcome, yes, but the purpose of my books is just to love on Black women. Like, I love being a Black woman, from the cocoa butter we use on our skin that gives us that quintessential Black girl smell, to the black eyed peas and collard greens we cook on New Year's, from voodoo practices that have been transferred from generation to generation. Like, I love everything about it.
Everything.
I love
Absolutely.
our hair. I love the way we wear lip liner and a light lipstick inside. I love all that about
Right.
us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I write that joy, the things that I love about us, I put that into my books, because my books really are a love letter to Black women, and to some extent, the Black community as a whole, saying, hey, I love us, and we are so much fun. Like, the things that we do and come up with, out of necessity to be able to survive in a place that was never intended for us, right? To survive. It was never intended for us to be assigned humanity,
Mm-hmm.
to embody humanity. The ways in which we have been able to create spaces for ourselves, create culture when they ripped ours away, and create these wonderful things, these wonderful practices, these wonderful ways in which we exist and walk through the world. I think it's phenomenal. And so I'd much rather write my books focusing on the way I love Black folks than how white people are treating
Love
us.
it. I knew I loved it. I love it. Going back to your new book,
hmm
Royal Bride Demand, that book features Raina,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
She is a Brooklyn billionaire. I was
Yes,
like,
she is.
okay, Raina, let's do it then. Of course, I've loved the whole Royal Bride side, and
hmm
this is truly a royal ride. But she is unlike most what you come to see for your princesses, and she's
hmm
so you mixing this royalty with this hometown vibe with this very modern Black woman. How did this story come about? Because I'm like, okay, I'm okay, Miss Bride from Brooklyn, let's go.
Well, again, it always starts with I love Black women. I
Yeah,
especially love being a Black woman from Brooklyn because that's my hometown. I tell people all the time, they'd be like, "Where you from, Brooklyn?" And then somebody else will be like, "Don't you live in Pennsylvania?" I was like, "You ain't asked me where I live. You asked me where I was from." Where
from
I'm
Brooklyn.
from Brooklyn.
I used to work at an agency, and I'm in Atlanta now, and
Mhm.
I have gone back and forth between Atlanta and Los Angeles. And for several years, I worked for an agency, a PR agency in New York. And twice a month, I had to go to New York for 2 weeks at a time. Absolutely. And Brooklyn, like the first time I got there, it was I'm going to Brooklyn. And like to the
There's
point I
so
was
much
every time
culture
I
in
went,
Brooklyn.
so much culture. And
There's
every
so
time I
much
went,
culture in Brooklyn.
I would be looking at like, okay, can I move here? Like I would go looking for brownstones in Brooklyn. I'm like, this is like I still to this day, my sister will tell you, everyone tell you my dream is a brownstone in Brooklyn.
Like
Like that's
it's
how I pictured my life. And I'm nowhere near, but I'm like, I still can live in a brownstone in Brooklyn.
and that is Raina's family. Literally, it grew up in Brooklyn. The family's still very much in Brooklyn, and she's what Candy Burris calls bougetto. Like she a bit bougie, but she don't have a problem becoming a round the way girl in
And
a
what?
heartbeat. Like in a heartbeat. And so when she and, Javiri, when we meet them, they are ex-lovers. They have been broken up for 2 years when the book starts, and they had a very nasty breakup. And so they are fuss fighting and arguing. Like from jump, she's coming at his throat because she can't stand the ground he walks on. I mean, and what I love about her is that she stands her ground, right? Like she does not. That was one of the things that I knew going into writing Harlequin. I was like, listen, I don't write heroines that just be like, okay, like my heroines, they just don't. Like they don't. Like you can't just tell them something and they're gonna do it without questioning or you
And it would
questioning
not
you.
be authentic.
It wouldn't
Uh,
be. So
I don't know very I mean they exist, but not none of the ones in my social circle.
exactly, mine either. So I was like a lot of the times I have read like certain stories, and a lot of the ways that I would see the hero treat the heroine, I was like, I'd have cussed his behind out a long time ago and told him where he and his mama could get off. Like, why
And
is
that's
she
what
still here on the page
and
with
that's why I
him?
keep saying it's so that's why it's so important to have inclusive and something that is representative because
hmm
I'm like you said, because you'd be like, wait, what?
Who do you think you talking
Talking
to?
to.
And say, and there's even a moment like that in the book where he gets very beside himself because he's about to become king and he's making all sorts of edicts and talking to her sideways. And she's like, let me explain something to you. All right. We got hands for days and we don't fight fair. All right. So if you want that smoke, you better make sure you want that smoke when you come for one of us because you're going to come for all of us. And
Right.
you are not going to tell me what I have to do because all I really got to do is stay black and die. Don't come at me like that. Like, don't. And he is so like shocked because in his world, no one would dare.
That doesn't happen.
Like literally tell him I will beat your behind if you come at me like this. Because that's Basically what she said to him, don't come
We
for me.
fight.
We will fight.
I will fight you.
He literally has to like think like, did she just threaten me? Like, is he me?
She know I'm about to be a king.
Exactly. And so it so unnerves him because he can't put her in a box, right? He starts the book by trying to force her into things. And every time he tries to force her, she ends up resisting in some way. And it's only when he finally starts coming together with her and partnership and working with her that he starts to see, okay, this is how we can actually get things done without all of that, because she is his partner. She is not one of his servants. And that's what he has to learn, like that she's her own person, that he can't just make unilateral decisions for her. Yeah, he may be king of a nation, but he's not king of her. And that's a hard lesson for him to learn, especially when he's like actually concerned about her and worried for her and trying to protect her. But he just doesn't understand that you can't take agency out of her hands. Her natural response is going to be to fight you because she is a whole human being with the right, and she understands who she is. Like, she's a woman who is self-possessed. She knows who she is. She does not need outside influence to tell her who she is. And when you are self-possessed like that, when you really know who you are, like, there is no coming at you and forcing you to do things without resistance, because you, like, people respond to that. Like, even in my own personal life, people respond to me in a certain way because I give off a certain aura. It's not that I'm trying to be intimidated, and I'm all of 4'11", so I really don't understand how I'm intimidating anybody. But I do understand that I have presence because I know who I am, right? And I find that that is such a rare quality in today's world of social
Hmm.
media, where people are looking for validation, getting that instant reward, that instant response from, posting something. I'm a Gen Xer, right? A late Gen Xer, almost millennial. And like, we just didn't do that. Like, we found self-validation within ourselves. We did things to love on ourselves. We grew, and I know growing up in Brooklyn, you can't be worried about whether somebody like you or not. Like, that's the quickest way to bring harm to yourself if people see you as vulnerable because you want to like them. And you want to survive in Brooklyn, people better know, okay, I can't try her. And I think that there are so many people now who, especially since COVID, where we were locked away for 4 years,
Yes.
and a lot of people did not really, especially a lot of young people, didn't really have those 4 years to really like grow emotionally and socialize into their adulthood. Many of them don't really understand that. They don't understand. They think you're standoffish. It's like, I'm not standoffish. I know what I will tolerate. I have my boundaries. They're
You
very
have
clear.
boundaries.
And I don't need to be convinced of anything. I don't need to be part of the group. If I am, that's great. But I'm okay being over here by myself. I actually do love my own company. And I don't like, we had to play by ourselves. We had to do things by ourselves, especially because our parents were often working and we were probably with grandma.
Yeah.
Right. And so there
And that's
was,
so. You saying that is so crazy because, like, I will go on I'm headed on a 2-week vacation right now by myself. My sister's like, you sure you just
I,
going by yourself? I
I do that
absolutely am.
all the
I
time.
would go to Europe by myself. I go to dinner by myself. I take myself to the movies, and I don't have issues with being alone.
Yep.
I can
Same
do things
here.
on my own.
I go to the movies by my I go see I see movies twice, right? So what happens is, as a mom, taking kids to a movie you actually want to see will make you want to fight. So I go I go see the movie by myself or with my husband on opening day if our schedules align. But if our schedules don't align, I go by
You go
myself
about
on opening day, enjoy my
popcorn in
movie
hand.
without anybody calling my name, telling me they gotta go to the bathroom, asking for more concessions, not, it's telling him to stop putting his hands in the popcorn. Like, no, I don't have to deal with any of that. So I go see my movie first. And I don't make any apologies for it. Like they know it's so unfair. You go by yourself for sure, do. And then the next time I go, usually sometime that weekend, I'll take the kids. And if my husband's schedule allows, then we all go out like as a family. But
Oh, yeah.
I have no problems going to movies by myself, going to dinner by myself. I have gone on
Me
vacation
either.
by myself. When the rare occasions when everybody is out of my house and I'm home, like the peace.
Nothing beats it. And it's interesting. My daughter is like that now. My daughter is about to be 35.
Mhm.
But she's like that. She'll hop on January. She's like, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to Puerto Rico. And my sister's like, you're going by yourself? She's like, yeah. She's traveled over the world. She studied abroad for a year. So
Mhm.
she has that in her also. But her friends, a lot of her friends do not. They don't, do those things by themselves. They're like, hey, they got to get this group together and has to be all these plans. And my daughter's like, y'all are doing too much. I'm over in Italy already.
Well, listen, if you are to like, I have never really understood peer pressure, and it's not because I think I'm so wonderful. In order for peer pressure to work, you have to fear the disconnect. Like you have to fear being not allowed to be part of the collective. And again, I like being part of the collective is cool, it's useful, and there are benefits to it, but it's not the end all be all. Like I'm
Mhm.
still going to be all right if I'm not part of the collective. And so that's how I actually write my heroines. My heroines are cool with being part of the collective, but it's not who they are. That's just like something they enjoy, something they do for fun. The minute it stops being what they need it to be, they're okay with moving on to the next thing. And I try to recreate that over and over in my books because to me, like it
Yeah.
literally is how it's my worldview. Like my my
And that's what I love
grandparents
about it.
my grandparents have always told me, you can't take none of this stuff with you when you gone. You came in this world by yourself. You gonna leave this world by yourself,
And that's what
and
I
you need
love
to be
about your
able
yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think I love about your characters. A lot of them are curvy plus size, some are plus size. They're very confident. They know who they are. They know who they want, what they want. Even with Raina, it's just like, okay, so you a prince, and
Well, I mean, when she finds out that he's a prince, because she doesn't know in the beginning. Once
right.
she finds out, like I think she says something to the effect of your lying ass, like she like
The
she's
amount of times I kind of giggled and like, okay, I love her.
her sister's
I
worse.
kept saying, she's so Brooklyn.
Her sister is so much worse, and the king
I
that her
can't imagine.
sister ends up with is even worse than Jasiri. So it's
When
it's
does the sister come? When does Regina come out?
yeah. Regina's book comes out in November, December. So it'll come out like early November on Harlequin, and then like the end of I think November 25th wide for everyone else. But I love writing characters like that.
Yeah. There's so many times I was just like, oh, she's so Brooklyn. Oh, she's so Brooklyn. I love it. How do you have two like very, I guess, intense tropes in this one book. You have the enemies to lovers story,
Hmm.
and then you have that's the second chance. And the second chance wasn't because it was like you said, it was an ugly breakup. It wasn't something like, oh, we just grew apart or there was a
Hmm.
misunderstanding. Like they cannot stand each other. How did you balance these very intense different tropes like and because you was like it's not just one, it's two.
Well, and then there's also marriage of convenience as well,
And the
and
marriage of convenience that they
so
can't
it
stand each other.
yeah. So the thing is, whenever you have two people who can't stand each other, there's usually some deep seated connection between them that has either gone wrong or either has not landed the way one or both of them wants, right? And so the thing is, Jasiri and Reina have always loved each other. They have always loved each
Mhm.
other. But because of her past traumas and his ego, they really could not stay together because he was too proud to understand what she needed. And she was too raw from her trauma, her childhood trauma, to be able to try to see past what her feelings about marriage, because she was a commitment phobe. She didn't want to be married, right? Her feelings about marriage, and see that she and Jasiri could have something different possibly. And so because neither one of them is willing to relent in their perspectives, that love turns into something very dark, because they do love each other, but their egos really will not allow for there to be any sort of deep digging and connecting. And the marriage of convenience, the situation that's happening in his country that requires that he gets married, it really forces them to stop operating from a place of ego and to start like trying to take care of each other, but also trying to communicate better. They're older now, they've had some more experience. They know what it is to be without each other. And so when they finally do get past this, I hate you. And it's usually the reason they sort of kind of get past that I love you is because something emotionally intense happens between them, where they're taking care of each other one way or the other, right? So once they kind of get past that, it's always I mean, in the beginning they have to hate each other, so they're always like shooting the dozens back and forth and telling each other off back and forth. Like I think when the book starts, she basically tells him, I know you had something to do with this. Why don't you I know your feelings was hurt that that I turned you down. Like, get over it already. And his response is, I'm over it and you. Like they don't pull any punches
At
with each other.
all.
But
At,
that's what makes the fire between them burn. The fact that they're not pulling punches, but in their most vulnerable moments together, you see that they put down their armor and they care for one another. They put down their weapons and they care for one another. And it stops being about who can one up the other and becomes about how can I help this person in the moment that they're in. Right. Like he does all sorts of underhanded things to get her on the island, to
Mhm.
get her to marry him, and she's rightfully upset about it. But once she gets to the island and begins to see what's at risk, what could be lost if she doesn't go along with all of this, she gets out of her own way. Like, it stops being about her and it starts being about caring for this nation.
Right. Sitting here talking to you and listening to you, I wonder now. I know you've mentioned like your PhD work, and
Mm.
I know you're like the biggest like makeup girly and all of these things. And are there any parts of your life or in your personality or things like that that show up in your writing? Like, I know the Brooklyn girl, of
Mhm.
course, but then as I'm talking to you, because even sometimes I see a lot of you in
Um, I
Raina.
I feel like if out of all my characters, Raina and
Yeah.
Regina are probably very much like me, and I would say Keely from Designs on a Rancher is very much like me.
Okay.
Um, but I think the thing that's actually most like me, or rather like my experience, my real world experience, is the familial connections. Like in most of my books, I don't want to say all, but in most of my books, the familial connections and the strong ties to Black history are very much part of my own upbringing. And so I always try to like represent that. So for the Devereaux, it's about Ace Devereaux, who is the patriarch, who is very much poured into each of them in these really individual and magnificent ways that really have helped them grow into the people that we meet on the page. And I know that growing up with my grandparents living in the same house as my parents, it gave me that ability to have that sort of wisdom poured into me. And I really believe that a lot of my life choices, a lot of the reasons why I do some of the things I do and why I've made certain decisions have been right or wrong, have been because of the way my grandparents poured into me and how important that was in helping me develop my own identity. The self-possession that I have, like that is very much part of growing up in the house with them. And so you see that a lot in all of my books,
Yeah.
definitely in the Devereaux family. I saw this post that said, I was reading a book and the one character called their sibling like brother. And I was like, I can't read this. This is not reality. I was like, actually, like, I call my sister sister. I was like, if my sister called me by my name, I'm like, it's like she cursed me out. Like, are we fighting? Like, if my husband calls me LaQuette, I'm like, who is you talking to? Who is this LaQuette person? Like, that's not
My
what you
cousins are
call
like
me.
that. I have
Right?
I have cousins. They call each other. She calls her sister sister.
Mhm.
Now, me and my sister, we call each other, "Hey, girl." But I have two cousins, and they call each other sister sister, and they
Yeah.
call their brother brother. They don't use their names with each
Ex-
other, of course.
Exactly. And so
And I'm
like
like,
I have cousins that I call them cousin. Like, and so the Devereaux, that's how the line of cousins, that generation of cousins, that's not what they refer to each other. Cause, like it's because that is something that's very real. That sort of familial connection
yeah.
is something that's very real to my own experience. And so I do replicate family ties a lot in my books. My family has gotten a lot smaller than it was when I was growing up, just by the nature of losing people, moving away or what have you. But I can remember the security growing up of having like that large family connection. And so I try to give that to my characters. So Raina and Regina have that with each other as identical twins. They're very close, but they also have that with the greater Devereaux family. And Jasiri has that with his parents. Even though
Mhm.
they're royals, they operate as a family first and not royals first. And that connection between he and his family, especially he and his mother, like that's something that Raina really cherishes, like the ability to see this Black family who has all the trappings, right? They don't have to be in each other's faces, but they still have dinner together. They still spend time together outside of their official capacities. And that's something that really touches her. And so you will always find in my books that family is really always like a subplot. It always is. The history also like this story was this kingdom is founded on a very real event that happened in history, the 1741 slave conspiracy of New York. It was a very real event. And so I wanted to be able to sort of like touch back to that and show that beauty can still come from something that was meant to destroy us. And so I always
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm always inspirational in that regard and how I write us because I believe very much in Afrofuturism. Like I see us in the future. I see the great things that we do and we are just working toward those things. And it's like for me, it's a foregone conclusion. So I write my characters that way. I don't my characters are unapologetically Black, but they're also unapologetically proud of their meager beginnings. And
Whew,
even Jasiri, who is a king, a whole king, the way his nation is founded is one of the most one of the things he's most proud of, that his nation was founded by enslaved people. And that is like there's no shame attached to that. Like there's such reverence for what his ancestors went through and how they turned that around for themselves. So you're always going to see that sort of thing in my books. Like I can't help myself.
whew, what a conversation. Yes. Okay, but I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
Got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Okay. If this book got turned into a Netflix series
Mhm.
tomorrow,
Mhm.
who would play Raina and who would play Jasiri?
Raina her name is Danielle. I can't remember her last name right now. She played in Orange is the New Black.
Oh, Brooks.
Yes,
Yeah,
Danielle
Danielle
Brooks.
Brooks, right?
Yes, Danielle Brooks. I think she is one of the most
Yeah,
beautiful, talented
love her.
people that I saw her in Mahalia Jackson and I forgot that she was on the stage. Like I thought it felt, sounded, her mannerisms were Mahalia Jackson. I think she's one of the most talented people in the world. And if I could get, she would actually have to play both roles because they are identical sisters,
They are identical.
identical
Yeah,
twins. But she is the prototype
yeah. I can
for
absolutely see that.
Raina and Regina. For Jasiri, who did I think of for Jasiri? Who was I thinking of? I knew that I wanted him to be like a tall, broad, like black man with locks. And I don't know that I was thinking of a particular like person in real life, but that's how he came to me in my mind. He was very much like he had his hair like sort of like close shaved on the sides, but the top was his locks and they were always twisted into some intricate,
Picture
beautiful
like
pattern.
the guy that's playing. Is it Alex Cross or what's his name? That's playing in the
Aldris Hodge?
Hodges, right? Is that
Yeah, Aldris
Hodges?
Aldris Hodge. Yes, yes. I could
Him
definitely see that
with
with locks. Yes, I could see that. I definitely could see that. Absolutely.
we're connecting. I get it. See? If your writing had a theme song, what would it be?
With my writing had a theme song. I don't know why Survivor is Destiny's Child Survivor
Yeah.
is coming to my mind. I think that is such a beautiful song in resilience, and that's what my characters are. Like they are wonderful despite everything that the world says about them. They're not only surviving, they're thriving. And so that's very, very important to me when I'm creating the worlds that I create.
That was perfect.
Mhm.
And I think we covered it all. This has been like again what I said, this has been such an amazing conversation and I can't tell you how much more I crush on you now.
Aw, thank
You're
you.
officially like I have my author crushes and you're like, okay, she's in my top 5 now.
I appreciate that. Listen, we authors, I know y'all think we're just like living the glamorous life. Like we live really in a bubble. Like we have no idea what's going on with the rest of the world sometimes, especially when we're like in the writing cave. And so sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, I never assume that. I never like to assume that people even know who I am, let alone care who I am.
Listen, when I
I really and some people might think it's like it's an actor. So I really do not assume that people know who I am. I always introduce myself. Hey, I'm LaQuette. I don't think we've ever met. And I'm like, of course I know who you are. I'm like, really? You do? It's always a surprise to me. I'm like when I go to like book events and readers are excited to meet me, they just don't understand. I'm just as excited to meet them, to know that they, like my work, they appreciate what I do, and they connect to my work in some way. So I'm always like, it is definitely a two-way street.
like, of course I know you. Do you know you're
I,
LaQuette?
because you know what, the LaQuette in person, like I am very much the same. Like my personality is very much the same, regardless of whether I'm in a professional space or my personal space. But again, like I don't see myself in that regard. Like I fangirl. I literally, when I met Miss Brenda Jackson, I was waiting for an elevator. I was on the phone talking to my husband. And the elevator doors open and she's in the elevator. And I was like, and she was like, aren't you on the phone? I was like, oh, it's nobody important. Closed the phone right there, hung up. Didn't even like say bye. Like, I was
That is
like,
hilarious.
ended the call and it's like, can I have a picture? Right. But I don't like as a person, I don't see myself like in her status, right?
Right.
Because to me, she's so like those pioneers, Donna Hill, Rochelle Allers, Sandra Kitt, Frances Ray. I didn't discover Beverly Jenkins until much later, but my preliminary foray into Black romance, those were the 4 or 5 authors that I was like really like reading. And so to this day, when I emailed Donna Hill, I'm like, Miss Donna, she was like, if you don't stop calling me Miss Donna or Miss Hill, like, stop it. Like, cause in my head,
Yeah.
they are
You
these
can't. You're like, but do you know
grandiose,
who you are?
but I don't look at I don't like walk around. I like, oh my God, I'm the fabulous author LaQuette. Like, I don't, that's
I'm
not what's
glad
going
you don't, because I'm like, did she say she would interview with me? I was like, "Oh, you can't tell me nothing now."
I really appreciate it. I always love connecting with readers. It really grounds me, and it also sort of gets me out of my own head, because sometimes when you're writing, you don't really know how people really read my books. Like, they really enjoy them. Because in my head, I'm like, this is just, especially by the time I'm done with the book, like, this book is coming out now. The last time I worked on this book was a year ago. And so I
Oh wow.
had to constantly be, working with this book. So by the time it comes out, like, I'm so through with these characters, I don't even want to know about them no more, because I've been immersed in them for like a year before the actual publication. So it's always amazing to me, like,
Yeah.
the way you all respond to books. It rekindles my love of the characters when I see how
That's
much
amazing.
you all love them.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I am now sitting on pins and needles waiting for Regina's story. Crowning at Devereaux, right?
It's the King's Pregnancy Proposition.
Okay, okay.
It's coming out November 1st on Harlequin, November 25th Y. And Regina and Alexandros, they are a mess. They really are a mess, because Alexandros is a hot mess, and he's Jasiri on steroids. Like, he makes
Oh,
Jasiri look like even Jasiri tells him, like, bruh, you gotta, like, calm down.
oh, I
You're
can't wait.
doing
I
too
can't
much.
wait.
Alex
Because
is
this
a
one was
piece of work.
wild, so I can't imagine.
Oh, and this way it gets wilder. Alex is a piece of work that Regina has to constantly put in his place. And he does not like it. He doesn't often respond well to it. But eventually he gets the point that this is someone that is really important to him, and this is not just a business transaction. Like, this woman actually makes him better. And he is so, like, twisted up inside over Regina. And so, like, that, like, literally, she got that poor king wide open. And he is so twisted and torn because of their connection, but also because of things that haunt him from his past. And it is like, I find that their story is very haunting. It's painful to watch Alex, because he's such a wonderful person, but he has never had the ability to, like, outside of his immediate family, his parents and his sister, he's never, because he's lived such a guarded life, he's never really had the opportunity to be able to allow people into his world. And so to have this woman just show up and be big and bold and beautiful in his life, it's actually like she's teaching him how to love himself, really, and not just do a duty, but to love himself as a person and forget about being a king. So I really am. I probably like their story a lot better than I do Regina and Jasiri.
Oh goodness. Oh no. Oh,
Because those
I
two
have
are
to
mess.
wait.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't even have the cover for that yet, so I probably won't get the cover until I'm really interested. It's an interracial romance. So I'm really interested in seeing, because he's like, I fashioned him after John Stamos. I've always had like a John Stamos fixation. That dark hair, blue eyed white man thing. That if I had a white man type, that would
That
be
would
it
be
right
it.
there. Dark hair
I don't
with
know if
blue
I
eyes.
have a white. I might have. Do I have a white man type? Oh, you know who? I do have a white man type. Charlie Hunnam
Okay.
from
I know who he is.
that's him.
That rugged, look like he's a street brawler kind of thing going on. I know, see, like, so I'm really interested in how the cover and how they depict this.
Yeah, that too.
Cause I really want to see what they're gonna do with it.
Because this
Cause I
cover is really. I love this cover for Royal
Over.
Bridesmaid. It's so pretty.
I have never not loved my Harlequin covers. They have always, God bless, done me right. And I am so impressed with though, because they have us fill out forms, what have you, and I'm like, even that book, everything from the coloring, I was like, I really, because of the colors are representative of their country colors,
Hmm.
and so I was like, I really would just like to see a lot of purple. They wear a lot of purple. I would like to see a lot of purple in it. And like, there's a scene in the garden, so if you could get a garden with like purple flowers, I would love that. And they put all of that together in that book. And in the modern version, this is the UK version. And
Okay.
it's even more here that you get the castle in the background. I love them. So I'm really excited for what they will do with Regina and Alexandros. And I'm like, I can't wait. I think May is probably when I'll say, because they're usually like 6 months
Okay.
before your publication date. But I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do with that. She's probably gonna have a baby bump because it's a pregnancy story. So I'm
Okay.
really looking forward to it. I'm just cross your fingers, pray with me that it
I'm gonna sending you good juju. It could go either way. But
Exactly. So and when I get my covers and they're gorgeous, I'm always like, thank you, cover gods. I so appreciate y'all. Thank you.
hilarious. This has been so much fun. I am so excited to have had this opportunity to talk to you. It's everything that I thought it would be. You were amazing. You were so amazing. And I'm
Aw.
like, I like her even more.
Well, thank you. The feeling is definitely mutual, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time to host me.
Thank you so much.
Wow, what a conversation. From rural scandals to real talk, LaQuette gave us so much insight into the magic, the mess, and the movement that is Black romance. If you haven't already, please grab your copy of Royal Bride Demand, available everywhere now. You're going to love this ride. Follow LaQuette online to stay up to date on her next releases. And if you love this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and share Culture Lit with your bookish besties. Until next time, stay lit, stay loved, and keep reading. You've been listening to Culture Lit with Octavia Marie, and that's all for us this week. Be sure to listen, download, or subscribe to more episodes of Culture Lit. You can find Culture Lit on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple listeners, please be sure to leave a review and let us know what you think. Don't forget to talk to me on social or share your Black love stories at Becoming Octavia Marie on Instagram or XO Octavia Marie on Twitter.